Ever feel like something's off in your relationship, but you just can't put your finger on it? You tell yourself it's just stress, or maybe you're overthinking things. That was Mark's life. He and Sarah were the picture-perfect couple, or so it seemed. They had met in college, two puzzle pieces that just clicked. Their life together was a comfortable rhythm of shared dreams and inside jokes. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the music started to change. It began with the small things, the little dissonant notes in their everyday harmony. Sarah started working late more often. "Big project at the office," she'd say with a tired but bright smile. Mark, ever the supportive husband, would have dinner waiting. He'd rub her shoulders and tell her how proud he was of her work ethic. Then her phone, once a shared space for photos and funny videos, became a private fortress. It was always face down on the table, and it would buzz with messages at odd hours. When Mark once casually asked who was texting so late, she snapped, "It's just my group chat from work, Mark. Can I have a little privacy?" He was taken aback. Privacy had never been an issue before. It was just a text, right? He brushed it off, chalking it up to work pressure. He didn't want to be the suspicious, controlling husband. The distance grew, not in miles, but in the inches between them on the couch. Their easy conversations were replaced by a tense silence, filled only by the sound of the TV. Mark tried to bridge the gap. He'd suggest date nights, weekend getaways, anything to recapture the spark they once had. But Sarah always had an excuse. A friend's birthday, a work deadline, or she was just too exhausted. Each rejection was a small sting, another crack in the foundation of his trust. He saw the red flags, fluttering gently in the breeze, but he chose to see them as just flags, harmless pieces of cloth. He loved Sarah, and love, he believed, meant trusting, even when it was hard. One evening, Mark was looking for a shared document on their home computer. He happened to see Sarah's email was still logged in. He knew he shouldn't look, but a gut-wrenching feeling he could no longer ignore propelled him. An email from a name he didn't recognize, Daniel, caught his eye. The subject line was, "Last night." His heart hammered against his ribs as he clicked it open. The words blurred as he read them. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" The world tilted on its axis. It wasn't a work project, it wasn't a group chat. It was a person, a man named Daniel. The pain was a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. Every late night, every guarded text message, every lame excuse clicked into place, forming a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. He felt foolish, blind. The red flags weren't just flags, they were giant, screaming sirens he had deliberately silenced with his own hope and denial. He sat there for what felt like hours, the glow of the screen illuminating the wreckage of his marriage. The silence in the house was no longer tense, it was suffocating. He had ignored the whispers of his intuition until they became a roar he could no longer escape. When Sarah came home that night, she found Mark sitting in the dark, the single email glowing on the screen like a confession. The cheerful mask she wore melted away, replaced by a flicker of panic, then resignation. There were no dramatic shouts, no thrown objects, just a profound, heartbreaking sadness. "How long?" Mark asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah couldn't meet his eyes. "A few months," she mumbled. Months. Months of lies. Months of living a double life while he was at home, trusting her, loving her. The conversation that followed was a blur of tears and broken sentences. Sarah talked about feeling neglected, about a spark that had died. Mark heard the words, but they sounded like excuses, justifications for a betrayal that had shattered him. He had tried. He had suggested date nights, offered support, given her space. What more could he have done? The truth was, this wasn't about him. It was about her choices. She had chosen to seek comfort in another's arms instead of talking to him, instead of working on their marriage together. She had chosen the easy escape over the hard work of love. In the days that followed, Mark moved through his life like a ghost. The home they had built together felt like a museum of a life that was no longer his. Every photo on the wall, every shared mug in the cupboard was a painful reminder of the lie he'd been living. His friends rallied around him, telling him he was better off, that he deserved more. He knew they were right, but the knowledge didn't ease the ache in his chest. The pain was a constant companion, a heavy cloak he couldn't take off. It was the pain of a broken heart, but it was also the pain of a broken trust, which felt infinitely worse. The hardest part for Mark was letting go of the what-ifs. What if he had confronted her sooner? What if he had been more insistent? But dwelling on the past was a trap. He realized he couldn't change what Sarah had done. He could only change how he responded to it. Slowly, painfully, he started to pack up her things. Each item was a memory he had to confront and release. It was an agonizing process, but with each box he sealed, he felt a sliver of his own life returning. He was reclaiming his space, his peace, his future. Healing isn't a straight line. There were days Mark felt strong and days he felt like he was back at square one, staring at that glowing email on the screen. He started going to therapy, learning to process the betrayal, and, more importantly, to forgive himself for ignoring the signs. He learned that his desire to trust wasn't a weakness. It was a testament to his capacity to love. The fault was not in his trust, but in her breaking of it. He began to reinvest in himself, hitting the gym, reconnecting with old hobbies, spending time with people who valued and respected him. He was rediscovering the man he was before his identity became intertwined with being Sarah's husband. One afternoon, months later, Mark was sitting in a coffee shop, sketching in a notebook, something he hadn't done since college. The sun was streaming through the window, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a genuine sense of peace. He realized the pain was no longer a crushing weight. It was more like a scar, a reminder of a wound that had healed, making him stronger where it had broken him. The red flags hadn't been a warning about his own failure, but a lesson in paying attention to his intuition. He learned that the hardest truths are often the ones we hide from ourselves, but facing them is the only way to truly heal and move forward. His story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about resilience. It was about finding his way back to himself after being lost in someone else's storm. If you've ever been in a situation like Mark's, know that you are not alone and your feelings are valid. Trusting your gut is a skill, and it's okay if it takes time to learn. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this time with me. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.